They laughed at you, not just once, not just in passing, but with the kind of cruelty that lingers, the kind that echoes in the back of your mind long after the moment has passed. They mocked your dream, ridiculed your ambition, and dismissed your every effort as foolish. You were the outcast, the joke, the one they whispered about when they thought you weren't listening. They smirked, shaking their heads, convinced that you were lost, destined to wander in circles, forever chasing illusions they deemed impossible. They thought they had you figured out, weak, clueless, naive. They took one look at you and decided you weren't a threat. They believed your silence meant submission. They mistook your struggles for stupidity, and in their arrogance they assumed you would never rise beyond the limits they placed on you. They laughed because they couldn't see past their own ignorance. They laughed because they were blind to the fire burning within you. What they didn't realize, what they never even considered, was that every laugh, every insult, every moment of humiliation was fueling something deep inside you. They weren't breaking you, they were sharpening you. They weren't stopping you, they were setting the stage for the moment you would prove them all wrong. But they were too distracted by their own superiority to notice. They were too busy underestimating you to see the storm that was gathering. They laughed at you, but the day will come when their laughter turns to silence. That silence will be deafening, heavier than any word they ever threw at you. Because when they see what you've become, when they realize they were wrong, so painfully, embarrassingly wrong, there will be no jokes left to tell. Their voices, once so loud, will be swallowed by the weight of their own disbelief. And you, oh, you will stand there, not with anger, not with bitterness, but with the quiet, unshakable confidence of someone who no longer needs their approval. Because you always knew. Even when they laughed, you knew. Even when they doubted, you knew. Even when the world called you a fool, you knew. The only fools were the ones who thought you would stay down forever. The pain of rejection is not just a wound, it is a weight, a burden that presses against your chest with every breath. They did not just dismiss you, they erased you. They acted as if you were invisible, as if your efforts were meaningless, as if your presence itself was an inconvenience. You felt it every time they looked past you, every time they smirked at your ideas, every time they brushed you aside without a second thought. They labeled you a failure before you even had the chance to prove yourself. They decided, long before you had the chance to rise, that you were unworthy of success. They threw their words like stone, each insult meant to chip away at whatever hope you had left. You're not good enough. You'll never make it. You're wasting your time. Again and again, their voices surrounded you, trying to carve doubt into your soul. You wore their words like chain, but you never surrendered. They thought their cruelty was enough to break you, but they underestimated the strength in your silence. They mistook your quiet for defeat, never realizing that behind every moment of stillness, you were learning, studying, observing, taking every insult, every rejection, every cruel word, and turning it into fuel. Every moment of humiliation was a lesson. Every time they mocked you, they unknowingly handed you another weapon. Every time they tried to belittle you, they added another layer of resilience to your spirit. They thought they were tearing you down, but in reality, they were forcing you to grow in ways they would never understand. You were clay in the hands of mockery, but pressure only made you stronger. Instead of crumbling, you hardened. Instead of breaking, you adapted. Instead of shrinking, you expanded. And while they laughed, while they sneered and ridiculed, you were becoming something unshakable, something unstoppable. One day, they will see it. One day, they will realize that their insults were never wounds. They were the fire that forged you. There was a moment, a night unlike any other, when something inside you changed. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't something the world noticed, but you did. It was the moment you decided that their words would no longer define you, that their laughter, their mockery, their rejection would no longer hold power over your soul. Maybe it was after another day of humiliation, another moment where they smirked in your direction, convinced that you would always be beneath them. Maybe it was after one final insult, the kind that should have shattered you, but instead it woke something up inside of you, a fire that had been waiting, a force that had been silent for too long. That night, you swore to yourself, "I will show them who I am." It was not a whisper. It was not a plea. It was a promise, a vow written in stone, carved into your very being. You looked at yourself, truly looked at yourself for the first time, and you saw not the fool they claimed you were, but the warrior they never saw coming. You stopped seeking validation. You stopped explaining yourself. You stopped trying to convince them that you were worthy, because you finally realized something they never wanted you to know. You never needed their approval in the first place. You were never weak. You were never lost. You were never beneath them. You had simply been waiting for this moment. They didn't know it, but the fool they mocked had become something else entirely. The one they ignored had sharpened into something dangerous. The one they rejected had become unstoppable. They laughed at you, but that laughter would soon be drowned out by the sound of your footsteps, steady, relentless, marching towards something greater than they could ever imagine. Because the moment you stopped listening to them, you started hearing of yourself, and your voice, the one they tried so hard to silence, was more powerful than anything they had ever said. They pushed you down, again and again, expecting you to stay there. They thought their laughter had crushed you, that their words had drained you of the will to fight. But while they were busy celebrating your failures, you were doing something they never expected. You were building, brick by brick, piece by piece, in the shadows, in the silence, in the hours no one else saw. You were crafting something they would never be able to ignore. While they wasted time mocking you, you were working. You sacrificed. You burned the midnight oil while they slept comfortably, believing they had already won. Every rejection became fuel. Every insult became a reason to push harder. They thought they'd broken you, but in reality, they had given you exactly what you needed, a reason to rise. They never saw the late nights, the early mornings. They never saw the battles you fought when no one was watching, the doubts that tried to claw at your mind, the exhaustion that whispered for you to quit. But you didn't, because deep down, you knew something they didn't. You weren't just surviving their ridicule, you were being forged by it. A blade is not born sharp. It does not come into existence ready to cut through anything in its path. It must be forged, heated in fire, beaten into shape, refined through pressure. And you were forged in their doubt. Every sneer, every dismissal, every time they called you a fool, they were the flames that shaped you, the hammer that strengthened you. They thought they were destroying you, but all they did was make you stronger. And soon, they will see it. Soon they will realize that while they laughed, while they underestimated you, while they wasted their breath trying to break you, you were becoming something unstoppable. There comes a moment when everything becomes clear, a moment when you look back at all the pain, the ridicule, the dismissals, and you see the truth hidden beneath it all. They were never laughing at you. Not really. Their mockery was never about you being weak or foolish. It was about them being afraid. They saw something in you, even before you saw it in yourself. They saw the potential, the fire, the hunger, and it terrified them. So they did the only thing they knew how to do. They tried to bury it. They tried to cover their fear with laughter, tried to drown your ambition in their mockery. Because if they could make you doubt yourself, if they could make you believe that you were nothing, then they would never have to face the truth, that you were meant for something greater. They weren't laughing because you were foolish. They were laughing because they were desperate to keep you from realizing the power you held. And for a while, it worked. For a while, you believed their lies, but not anymore. The greatest revenge is not anger. It is not hatred. It is not proving them wrong just to satisfy your pride. No, the greatest revenge is success. The greatest revenge is becoming everything they swore you could never be. The greatest revenge is rising so high that their words no longer reach you. And now you see it. The fool was never you. The fool was them, for failing to see your worth, for thinking their laughter could hold back a storm, for believing that their ridicule had the power to define you. They thought they had broken you. They thought they had silenced you. But in their arrogance, they made the worst mistake possible. They made you awaken. And now, the moment they never saw coming, the moment they never believed would happen, the tables have turned. The same people who mocked you, who dismissed you, who whispered behind your back, now they watch in stunned silence. The ones who once laughed now stand frozen, struggling to comprehend how the person they ridiculed has become something beyond their reach. They don't laugh anymore, because success silences all noise. They thought you were a joke. Now they're the punchline. You walk into rooms that they swore you would never enter. You accomplish things they said were impossible for someone like you. And the very people who threw stones at you now want to know your secret. They want to understand how you did it, how you rose from the ashes of their mockery and became something untouchable. But you owe them no explanation, no justifications, no apologies for proving them wrong. They had their chance to see your worth. They had their chance to stand beside you. Instead, they chose to tear you down, to underestimate you, to convince themselves that you would always remain beneath them. And now they are forced to confront the reality they never wanted to face. You were never beneath them, asterisk. You were never the fool. You were never the weak one. You were simply waiting for the moment when your time would come. And now it has. And the best part, you don't even need revenge, because your success is the loudest statement you will ever make. There comes a point where you stop looking back, a point where their words, their opinions, their judgments no longer carry weight. That point is now. You no longer seek revenge because you no longer need it. You've already won. The moment you stopped caring about what they thought, the moment you no longer needed their approval, that was the moment you truly became free. It was never about proving them wrong. It was never about making them regret their laughter. The real battle was never against them. It was against the doubts inside you, the fears that tried to keep you small. And you won that battle. You don't need validation. You don't need applause. You don't need to explain yourself, because the truth is undeniable. You've already proven everything you needed to prove, asterisk. Now, they watch from the sideline, trying to understand how you became something so unstoppable. They wonder if they should have supported you, if they should have believed in you. But their realization comes too late. You no longer care. You've moved beyond them, beyond their opinion, beyond the small world they tried to trap you in. The ultimate flex, it's not revenge, it's not bitterness. It's living a life so powerful, so undeniable, that they can't ignore you, even if they wanted to. The battle was never about them. It was always about you, becoming who you were meant to be. And now, you stand tall, unshaken, untouchable, because the war is over and you are victorious. Now they see you differently. Now they speak your name with respect, with admiration, with the same voices that once dripped with mockery. But it's too late. They want to be part of your journey now. They want to stand beside you, to claim they always knew you would make it, to rewrite history and erase the moments when they laughed, when they doubted, when they tried to break you. But you don't need them anymore. You never did. They regret it now. Every insult, every dismissal, every time they looked down on you, they regret it all. Because the same person they once mocked is now the one they wish they had supported. The same name they once ridiculed is now the one they wish they could be associated with. But you've moved on. You are no longer that person they laughed at. You are no longer standing in the same place, waiting for their approval, hoping for their acceptance. You have become something greater, something they never expected. And the irony? They wanted you to beg for their approval. They wanted you to chase them, to seek their validation. to prove yourself worthy in their eyes. But now, now they beg for your presence. And you simply walk away, because their approval was never the prize. Your power, your growth, your victory, that was always the goal, and you achieved it without them. Now, the air is different. The energy has shifted. You don't have to speak. You don't have to explain yourself. You don't have to remind them of the times they doubted you, dismissed you, mocked you, because your success speaks for itself. The same people who laughed at you now study your every move. They analyze your every step, trying to understand how the one they underestimated became someone they can no longer ignore. They watch from the shadows, hoping to find the secret to your rise. But what they failed to realize is that there was never a secret. It was always you, your discipline, your resilience, your refusal to break. The ones who rejected you, now they wish they had stayed. They wish they had believed in you before it was too late. They wish they had seen your value before the world did. But regret won't turn back time. And as they stand there, drowning in the weight of their own foolishness, you rise above it all, unbothered, untouchable, unstoppable. They thought you were a fool. Now they look foolish, forever doubting you. Looking back, you see it clearly now. You were never the weak one. You were never lost. You were never the fool they painted you to be. You were simply in the process of becoming unstoppable. Every doubt, every insult, every time they turned their backs on you, it wasn't a sign of your failure. It was proof of your transformation. They mistook your growth for weakness. They mistook your patience for passivity. They mistook your silence for surrender. But in reality, you were sharpening your blade. You were becoming the storm they never saw coming. Now you don't seek revenge. You don't seek validation. You don't care about proving them wrong anymore, because you have already proven something far more important. You have proven yourself right. You have built something real, something undeniable. You have become something greater than they ever imagined. And now, you walk with a power they cannot comprehend. They wrote you off, but you rewrote the story. And now they can only watch